Hey everybody, welcome to Morning Chalk Up. I'm your host Lauren Kalil, and we are recapping the quarterfinals. Unofficial, not until Friday. We still have a couple of days, so some weird things could still happen on the leaderboard. But to discuss everything and anything, we have Chase Ingraham and we have Patrick Clark, our sports analysts. Wow, this weekend it flew by. A lot went on.
Man, it flew by faster when I wasn't doing the workouts. I'll tell you what.
So
Your body feels good.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why my body doesn't feel good, which is why I would love to do these. I actually really, really enjoy the programming this year, especially when you compare it to last year.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And it's weird because like on paper they look very similar, but as somebody who did them all last year and them all this year, they did not even feel close to the same.
Yeah, I think they definitely took a big step forward in the programming itself, how they approached it with the demographic, taking the test in mind. I thought that was a really cool, a lot of little details that people may not give credit for how they set it up this year.
Yeah. So, what are some of those details that you think of when you look at the programming overall and how it played out now that we have kind of this unofficial leaderboard?
You can look event to event. So you're taking the top 10% out of the open. That's still a very amateur group of athletes. Now it's above average. I think I got in trouble for saying it's a barely above average group that went, but like it's not easy to make it. I get it. And when you look at, say, event number 1, last year, the very first movement was a strict handstand push-up. This year, they didn't have that until the very end. So it allows more people to get deeper in the workouts. They didn't have 60 GHD sit-ups, rope climbs, and pistols to start a workout. They had less reps and they added muscle ups. Like there's a lot of friendly things in there that made it more accessible early in the events, where it was like, oh, you can't do this first movement. Well, better luck next year. So I thought they did a lot of little details here to make it more accessible and fun for the everyday athlete. Well, not the everyday athlete, the quarterfinal athlete.
I want to give a shout out to Boz on this. I think they absolutely hit this out of the park, especially not having much time, because obviously, this was the job of somebody else prior, Dave Castro prior to doing this. And, he only did the open. So, I mean, that might be why some of these workouts look similar. They kind of grabbed a template and then Boz threw his little, flavor in there as well. So, but I think it worked out. And I've only done 2 of the 5 workouts, and I'll end up doing all of them in some extent. But just from the 2 workouts I did, it definitely felt different than last year's workouts.
When looking at the leaderboard so far, are these the athletes at the top of each continent that we expected to see, or were there any surprises when you guys look at it so far?
I mean, when you look at after the first day, it was like, oh, who are these people? But now you do, now you do 5 events, and it's really a list of names we've all seen before that over the past couple of years. So I don't see too many surprises when you at least look at, especially the top 3, maybe some new names in the top 10, but the programming did its job and the cream rose to the top.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like exactly. When we did that show on day 2, I mean, there's a lot of time. This guy is. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And now I'm like, okay, I can say these names because I've said these names tons of times and I know them. And it's just not just each continent's leaderboard, but obviously one of the big things that happened last night is that they finally did it. We have a worldwide leaderboard.
Yes.
Yes, finally.
That was awesome.
What I find really, really
Do you
cool.
think that somebody got in their ear? Or did they come up with that alone?
So what I heard was there was a lot of things they wanted to do. They just didn't have the bandwidth and the time to do it. So for example, Patrick, what you were saying is like, look, Boz took over the programming for the quarterfinals. He didn't get to do it for the open, which means he had a very, very small time window to create the programming. So when you put a, say, 3-rep lift in event 4, someone on the back end needs to create a template for that leaderboard in a matter of weeks. And with a lot of the things going on during the open specifically, I think the timetable at which the events were created to create a leaderboard to reflect everything that they wanted to do just wasn't enough. So the worldwide leaderboard was something that they wanted to do prior to the quarterfinal starting. They wanted to see the overhead squat, the bench, and the clean. I think they didn't have enough time with the amount of time from the programming was created to where they could shape the leaderboard.
Well,
Oh,
hopefully,
yeah, because that's something we were talking about that we really wanted to see. Like, I want to know how much people were bench pressing because it was a significant amount more than what I was.
Yeah.
I haven't looked yet, but I'm wondering if they went back and populated the 2021 and
Mm.
created a
Mm.
worldwide leaderboard for that, because that'd still be interesting, because we might see those workouts pop up again, and it'll give us something kind of a baseline, especially worldwide. And I do hope, just because the quarterfinals are over, well, technically pending final review, that they do go back and hopefully they do enter those individual workouts before, because that's still something, especially for analysts and people and broadcasters and
Mm.
people that generally love the sport. They can go back and see someone's bench press or this,
Right.
because I'm going to be writing a story about it soon, but basically why we love the big lifts. And obviously we saw throughout the weekend on people's Instagram were a lot of PRs,
Mm.
and that
Mhm.
PRs that aren't reflected on these athletes' bios,
Right.
that
Right.
haven't been
Yeah.
updated, that
Yeah.
they haven't updated since 2007 or 2008 or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was really cool, and from an analyst standpoint, and I mean, me and Chase have had conversations about this before, about how CrossFit can be more media friendly, and this is
Mm.
a good way. This is a good start, and yeah, I'm excited about that.
I think
For
it's a
sure.
great point you just made. It's like it makes it more fun. Like to
Mhm.
know what they did is really cool. It's like, hey, what are all these new cleans? And say we look at semifinals and there's a clean event. As analysts and sports broadcasters, like you have some context to maybe who may do well or who not. I want to know what people's overhead squats are. I'm not the biggest fan of like bench as an isolated strength test to qualify people to semifinals, but in this trio, I thought it was beautifully put
Mhm.
together. I'm a bigger fan of the other total as a more well-rounded test of strength than I am the actual original CrossFit total. I think that's a meathead strength test.
Mhm.
This you got to clean with weightlifting. You get your meathead lift with the bench press, and then you have one of the toughest, most mobility, athletically demanding singular lifts in the game with an overhead squat. I think this one is a way more versatile strength test for 1, 2, and 3 lifts than anything we've seen so far.
100%
And I
agree.
and I wanna bring up, what that leaderboard actually looks like, the worldwide. We're gonna start on the women's side because there's something that is so glaring. We always talk about it, but here we are. Look how far ahead Tia is relative to the rest of the field.
Man, like
She's she's
I,
the only female. Actually, she's the only athlete, if you bring males into it, that had
Uh-huh.
all top 10 finishes.
Oh,
Only one.
wow.
Her
and
average.
have you?
Her average. I'm sorry, Chase. Her
No, go
average
ahead.
was, I think, 3.8. Her next, her next,
Oh my
her next
god.
best, her next best competitor, average Gabby. Her average finish 26.
Wow.
That's She's 23 places on average better than her the runner up, and that's across both men and women, both fields. It's amazing.
And usually when that happens, you see they get a lot of firsts, and still that one thing that they're not great at knocks them down outside the top 10 or outside the top 20. And
Yep.
in an event like event 4, and
Mhm.
this also claims, or I think bolsters our claim of how well of a strength test event 4 was for a large athlete base, getting
Mhm.
7th in the world in a 3 combo lift. Like, to me, that is one of the more impressive things because that could be so specialized, right? There's people in the top 10% around the world in every continental semifinal, regional, that could just be lifters, right?
Mhm.
And they just squeaked
Sure.
in. But to get 7th worldwide in this broad of a test for strength, I thought it might have been one of her most impressive performance across all 5.
I agree again. I mean, it, and she's known as a lifter too.
Right,
So
right.
I still think that she probably had more in her. I mean, you put her. I mean, I don't know if maybe Shane maybe maybe kind of like throttle a little back a little bit. But I definitely think that she's not the seventh. I mean, on this test, I don't think she's the seventh best. She's easily top 5, and it might be something where she just simply maybe she missed a lift here or there. We don't know. We haven't seen the footage of that, but I mean that's still impressive because I was thinking when I first saw that and I was doing the math and I saw that was the outlier. Can you imagine that seventh place?
Right.
Seventh place. I was like, you can easily be all top 5 in all these.
I heard a lot of coaches telling their athletes to not fully push themselves beyond what they needed to do on the strength thing. And I think a lot of that had to do with if anything is going to go wrong on a weird lift, it's kind of one of those 3, right? You can catch a clean low, get your elbow caught on your knee, you do something to your wrist. Overhead squat can get a little squirrely with that shoulder position under max load and fatigue. And the big one is bench press, right? That's not a movement typically trained by CrossFitters, let alone I would say female athletes, because look, a lot of guys just grew up. That was like the only lift we cared about. What's your bench, right? And then we started CrossFit, and then what was your Fran time, right? Things have changed over the years. And that's a movement, if you're not properly trained in it or ready for it, that you could put yourself in some dangerous positions, just as sport would have it for any other movement you do. But I heard a lot of coaches making sure their athletes were very smart, did what they needed to do, and not really push themselves beyond the limits. So I'm with you, Patrick. Like, who knows if this was the CrossFit Games, what those numbers would have looked like.
100%. And then, like you said, they weren't trying to push themselves. That's why I think probably majority of these athletes, that was probably the first workout they did.
Oh, for
So then
sure.
even when you look at this leaderboard, do you think that the order of people would be a little bit different if this was like the CrossFit Games or even the semifinal leaderboard, if we were comparing different continents for semis?
I think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chase.
I think your top 10 will be your top 10, maybe some shifting around there. I don't think anything super drastic, and especially your top person. I don't think that's it could be any order. It could be 5 different workouts. It could be anything. And like Tia, it just unbelievable what she just did.
I kind of disagree with you on that. I mean, I agree with the top 10, but if I told you, hey, this is in the quarterfinals, and I showed you the leaderboard and said, hey, this is the games, it's totally believable. I mean, there are some outliers like Alexis Raptis, but we have that every year where a rookie or a new athlete comes out of nowhere and performs. But if you look at that top 20 athletes, those are top 20 athletes at the games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and if you look at the point differential, especially on the women's side, it looks just like the game, dominating, and everyone else is just, fighting 20 points here and there. But that can easily be the this year's games leaderboard.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's actually a good point. I mean, look at Laura Horvath. She's sitting in 21st place, but it's only because of event 1.
That's it.
Right. And you put another 5 tests on the end of this, and who knows where she's at.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Laura, if you look at all those other outcomes, I mean, a 5th and a 3rd to end the weekend. I mean,
oh, right. Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, when we go over to the men's side, it's even a little bit more noticeable like that as well. It looks like a men's games leaderboard. But God, what Tia did, I mean, especially for those who were kind of doubting her conditioning.
They're not anymore.
Anyone even doubted that going into the Open? Like, there's a couple people that they didn't think that she was fit enough. You don't understand. It's not like she was out of shape. She was just, it's just like she just wasn't up to speed on some of the classic CrossFit components that she normally trains in. And for an athlete like her, it doesn't take long to get that back.
Well, and the most dangerous part is it's not like she's in elite shape now either.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? She's in great shape.
Yeah.
But her coming in
shape.
May and June and then seeing what she's going to be in the first week of August. Yeah. This is scary to see already.
It is. It really is. I mean, and nothing against Mal, but after that first, the Open, everyone's like, "Oh, this is going to be fun to watch." I mean, it's still going to be fun to watch, but I still don't think it's going to be close.
No.
I mean, no. My apologies to everyone on the leaderboard on the women's side, and I hope it is. I really do, because we all love to see a race, but I just think even if these athletes aren't peaking, but neither is Tia, but yet she's still over 100 and 10 points better than, her nearest competitor. And that competitor, I mean, Gabby is one of the up and coming, top athletes, someone that a lot of people are picking to finish on the podium or to give Tia a run for her money.
Were you guys more surprised to see Cara Saunders in third, that close, or Sarah Sigmundsdottir in the top 10?
Ooh.
I think Sarah in the top 10. Just not that I was doubting her ability to come back, but again, like this is her first time being at the training camp, at Training Think Tank for an extended amount of time, training in person with some of these athletes. And while we've seen that situation go well for a lot of people, it's not for everyone. You don't know how your body is going to react to pushing yourself against these other competitors, especially when you're coming back from an injury. So for me, it was kind of a flip of a coin how well she was going to do, but seeing her in the top 10, I think just shows that what her and her coach, Max, and the other people in her training group, what they're doing is working.
Yeah. If you would have asked me actually before Lauren's interview with Cara after her
doing 22.3 in the rain,
finding out that she was kind of under the weather the first two workouts, but then her crushing 22.3 in the rain, then I mean, if I didn't know that, then I would say that's a surprise, her being third. But knowing that, I'm like, yeah, okay, she's back to being Cara. But then, kind of like what Lauren brought up about Sarah, I'm more impressed by Sarah because the Sarah we know up until this year, she was kind of a lone wolf. She, I think, really a consistent training partner has always been kind of BKG, especially when she's isolated. That was kind of her training partner. Now she's kind of bought into that whole training camp ideal, and now she's training full time at Training Think Tank. And this past weekend, she was able to do all this stuff with Alexis Raptis, Noah Olson, Jake Berman. I mean, all these people. So we're seeing her mature as an athlete, and I'm excited for her. I mean, maybe this is the push she needs because in the past years it was by herself and her coach, and that was it. And she's a person that thrives on competition, and why not? Why not have competition every day, especially someone like her, especially when you can bring competition like Noah and Alexis Raptis in to push her because it's making them better. Obviously, it's making them better.
Chase, who are you more surprised by?
I would say I'm really excited to see where Cara's at. I was really hoping we could get another year or two out of Cara to see what she could do at the games after having her daughter. But I'm definitely more surprised to see where Sarah's at. In a positive sense, because, I won't be shy away of my thoughts is like, I was very hesitant to how soon she was coming back to Dubai. And then what happened in Wadapalooza to me affirmed what my initial thoughts were of, I think, Sarah has a tendency of self-preservation not being at the top of her list of priorities. And it's not really something that she thinks about when she trains or when she competes in the past. But now being, like you said, at Training Think Tank in front of Max with a group of people that all have that like mind of proper training, good coaching, and a good environment, I think this could be the best version of Sarah if she listens to her coaches and does what she's supposed to do. Because I think Sarah is like the best and maybe like most frustrating athlete to coach, because I feel like she would do whatever you asked her to do until she went rogue for one thing. And that one rogue moment leads to something that could be devastating to her training.
Yeah. She's been known to kind of spiral after doing something like that. And we've seen it in the past, but I think Max, this is her second year basically under Max, first year in person. So I think talking to people that know Max and her, specifically Snorri, her agent, and he said this is a match made in heaven, and he wished they would have found each other earlier. Now, granted, Sarah was a different person back then than she is now, but like you said, it's scary to see this, especially watching that total, what she put up on that total.
Yeah. Okay, let's move now over to the men's overall leaderboard. Sitting at the top, still Justin.
Yeah, but I did not see Guy coming in second worldwide.
Yeah.
By a pretty substantial margin, if you think 40 points over Jeffrey Adler. But those top three guys are almost separated themselves from the rest of the field. It was wild.
Yeah, I mean, when Guy moved over to Mayhem, everyone's like, "Oh man, this is it."
Mhm.
But we hadn't seen in those results because obviously he pulled out of Dubai, he pulled out of Wadapalooza, so we haven't seen that. But we know he's been training. I think we're kind of seeing that. We're seeing some of those weaknesses. Um, I mean, obviously he has that top end strength. The short, strong workout. Obviously event 2, or I'm sorry, event 5. He crushed that. But now we're seeing some of those workouts were questionable, where he would finish middle of the pack, and he's doing well in. I mean, obviously doing all those GHDs are paying off with Rich. You know,
Like he
but
needed better abs.
yeah, I mean he had the abs, but still, GHD isn't all about the abs. It's
Yeah.
about
Now they're more functional. They're more functional. They're
exactly,
not
and
just
now
for
he's
show.
using those, and
He's not just a display model only.
Exactly. The crazy part is seeing his lifts. Like he posted his lifts, and all of them looked like 80% efforts.
Yep.
Incredible.
Lauren loves his. Yeah.
Just like, okay, so first of all, the lifts look amazing. They are so
Oh,
technically
man.
sound. But then, of course, like the celebration after each one.
Right.
I love that. I'm here for the whole show.
Well, and he is just so much fun to watch move a barbell. It's just an absolute treat to be able to watch him lift.
Hey, something I just noticed here, because this is worldwide, and we discussed this earlier regarding workout 3. Adler is now in first. He won workout 3. So it looks like they
a lot of scores have been adjusted. 11 at least ahead of him.
It was mainly the European. I mean, they fixed the North America this morning, and I think he was at the time like place overall. And then it looks like he had a lot of.
If you look, I don't know that they're done fixing some of these scores though.
Well,
not to
yeah
pull anybody out on the spot, but right. But I mean, if you look at like this Brian,
he's not going to go backwards.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to go backwards.
Right.
So it kind of like what we suspected, and I brought up last week. And again, me, Brian, and Tommy were talking about this once. We kind of saw this fishy business going on here, and 13:11 seemed like the time to beat 13 minutes. And we had like, I think at one point I counted like 40 scores or 40 times under 13 minutes. So it looks like it's fixing itself right now. And I mean, again, kudos to CrossFit for doing that. And it seems like they've been on it all weekend. But yeah,
oh, man, they have a lot more to go.
Yeah, they do.
I wonder how many people are on it. Like, I'm just trying to think of like the amount of people that you would need to go through all of these videos to make sure that all of the standards are hit. And then, I mean, even you can see like some of these names, maybe they're correct because the times reflect that, but you look at how well they did on workout 3 and you compare it to some of the other workouts, it's like not even close.
So I will, as someone who's been on a video review judging, I did it in 2017 and 2018 for back in regionals. It sucks. It really does.
Dude, it's the worst.
It's a very thankless job. I mean,
it is the worst job in CrossFit.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's completely volunteer. Obviously, the L1s have the L1s, and Boz and his crew, the scoring crew, they have the final say. But it starts with those volunteers. And, how we did it in regionals is like we were giving a batch of videos, and we just sat there and watched them. And then we would make a determination. If there was some type of penalty, we would determine if it's a major penalty or minor penalty, and then we would pass that on to the next stage, and then they would review it and onward. I mean, it was like if you found a discrepancy, it went through like 5 channels. So it's a long and tedious process. And I did it for 2 years, and we don't get anything for doing it. It's not,
right.
It burned me out. It kind of burned me out in judging, and I don't envy those people. So when people are, there's people saying, oh, they need to be held to the standard, and it needs to be done now. Give us
right.
Give us some time.
It takes time. Yeah,
it takes time. It's not an easy process. Put yourself in those shoes. I've been in those shoes, and I'm sure it's a much harder task than when I did it. But
yeah. Although I feel like for event 3, I mean,
that one would be pretty.
You just watch like the first 4 minutes. You're like, and no. Down, back, and he moved on. I'm like, oh nope, that's a no.
Going back to Adler, I mean, this is a different Adler. I've been saying it since the end of the games. He didn't have the best games finish. He had it exposed a lot of his holes, especially when it came to machine work. And he said he was dedicating himself to doing that. And then he went to Dubai. He had a very good
Yeah.
performance at Rogue. Obviously, he finished third, and then he finished fourth in Dubai, just outside that, just a couple points. But now we're just seeing his level of fitness. I think he's hitting a lot of those holes where we thought he was kind of like a really strong guy. But now he's showing a lot more. His engine work looks a lot better, and
which is big credit to Adler for doing that, because he was one of the elite strength guys, and the biggest problems he's always had, you're right, is the lifting. I remember talking to him after the 2020 games, where all he was talking about was how he's going to do in the total or the snatch event, and then he got obliterated in pretty much everything else.
Yep.
And I talked to him after the games, like, listen, like, and his coach Caroline is like, you just gotta swallow some pride, and maybe you're gonna have to take a lateral step to the right for a year, which might have been what we saw last year at the CrossFit Games in 2021, because he was making that athletic transition. Yeah, you still went to the games and you still fared pretty well for anyone's standards. I mean, like, to suck at the CrossFit Games is a feat in and of itself that 99.9% of us would be jealous to be able to do.
100%.
And so that sidestep he took in 2021, I think, is this leap forward that we may be seeing in 2022.
Yeah, it's almost like he wasn't peaking. Like, he was using the games. He was still, like you said, he was evolving.
Let's see if this is working.
Yeah, he was evolving. And then it showed off. It showed off at Rogue, where he finished third against basically the same field, with different tests, but still the same field. And he's like, all right, I like this. Let's keep it going. And then I think it's paying off. So that's impressive. I think it's something, I know that the top three, we're looking at them, and then, but look at fourth, Chandler. I mean, I know me and Chase, we're big Chandler fans. Obviously he gives us some cringe moments here and there, but it's only because we love you. It's only because we love Chandler that we do this. But God, it's good to see him there, especially this is a guy who did all 5 workouts in less than 24 hours.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know how that's a thing.
Submitted the scores and then went and had fun. And it's just crazy. You just and that's a testament I'm sure we'll talk about later, because obviously there were some athletes who failed to enter their scores in on time, or they had some problems doing that. But here's an athlete who had no problem entering all his scores all at one time and enjoyed the rest of his weekend. So there's no sense waiting to the last minute to do that. Just submit them. If you know you're only doing the workout once, just do it. You won't have this issue. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Chandler, and then obviously you have the Panchik brothers.
All of them.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for Chandler is this is a guy who gets in his head a lot.
Yes.
Right? And Chandler's biggest hurdle in any competition is himself.
Yep.
And I think in this format where he was forced to just get them done, and sometimes when it's that you have that ridiculous of a time frame to take a pretty serious test, you almost relax a little bit. You don't give yourself too much time to overthink. You don't give yourself too much time to overstretch. Like, listen, guys, this is the card I'm dealt. Let's just go get this done. And I think this should be a great lesson for Chandler in itself, is like, the less seriously you take the moment, the more you're allowed to be in the moment, as opposed to let that moment stress you out. And I think this might have been I'm not going to say the tipping point, but I really hope Ben, who I think is a great mental coach, takes what he did mentally, doesn't worry about the physical placing, and builds off of that. He's like, hey, how did you approach this from a competitive standpoint? It's like, well, I didn't have time to stress out. I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So I think Ben Bergeron needs to do what he does best and work the more like mental hurdle that Chandler just leaped in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and I also want to give credit to his fiance, Jess Harper. I think that's probably playing a lot. If you ever met Jess, she's down. I mean, she's playful, has fun energy, and she was there doing it with him. And whenever I see those two working out together, I can see that he has less stress. He's not serious. He's not down on himself, because she's there to help him. And I think, who knows? I mean, we've always talked about the potential of Chandler, and maybe this might be the year. Who knows?
All right, you guys brought it up, the Panchik brothers, all 3 within the top 20. Scott, he's still leading the way, even though he's air quotes retired.
He ain't retired. Come on. You're not retired, bro.
Chase, do you think we're gonna see him at the CrossFit Games? Seriously.
If he goes to semifinals, yes.
Okay.
I really do. And
right.
I heard him talking about it. And this is a moment that we may see the same thing with Brooke Wells at the moment and her success after coming off that injury is, Scott talked about it. Like Scott had a huge weight on his shoulders, and that was podiuming at the CrossFit Games. And he never got to do that. And I think that pressure and that expectation and that moniker really plagued his ability to almost enjoy competing at the CrossFit Games, almost fully enjoy training for the CrossFit Games. And a lot of times that can really affect the way you listen to your body. And that's, listening to your knee, listening to your back. And I think the best thing for Scott is that, he has a family now. He has other priorities. He's more invested in what his brothers are doing and more invested for things outside the CrossFit Games. And now that he says he's, quote, retired, he's taken that pressure off. And maybe that's the restrictor plate that he's had his entire career of trying so hard to make the podium. It's like, dude, your fitness level is beyond anything that most people could dream of at the CrossFit Games. You've just run into a couple buzzsaws of Rich Froning, Justin Medeiros, and Matt Fraser over the last decade, and Ben Smith. But now you take that pressure off, and maybe that is that one weight that's lifted that he can actually just go play, just go compete, and still compete at a very high level. So if I think he should give it a shot, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at the CrossFit Games one more time.
I totally agree. He was on Savon's podcast on Saturday, and he talked about that. He's talking about how much fun he's having. That oldest, I think he's still intense in his workouts, but the volume's dramatically cut down. He's not doing 5-hour sessions now. He's just going to the gym, and he gave a lot of credit to Spencer. Spencer coming in because Saxon's out in Nashville, and Spencer's, they don't have the affiliate anymore, and Spencer needs a place to work out, and he needs a workout partner. So he's saying he gave a lot of credit to Spencer in terms of he's found having fun, spending time in the moment. And then his wife was in the quarterfinals as well. So him just being there and getting to enjoy, just be in that moment, like you said, and there's less stress. And I think deep down, I think he wants to go to the games, especially if Saxon and Spencer can be there with him.
What a magical thing that would be.
Exactly. All three of the brothers. I think that, and that quite possibly could happen. Chances of that happening are really high, and I don't think he'd miss that opportunity, miss that moment to have it, share it with those two guys as well, his brothers as well.
All right, movie opportunity.
All right.
Scott Panchik, Spencer Panchik into the final event, but Scott's ahead of him, sitting in 5th place. Does Scott throw it to get Spencer to the games for the first time?
Oh, wow.
The ultimate big brother sacrifice.
Was there something? Did this play out?
It was Saxon. It was Saxon's first time to the CrossFit Games.
Was that 2018
Central East? I think so. I don't think Scott didn't make it, but I think Saxon was on the outside looking in to get in for his first time to the CrossFit Games. He was a part of that.
I think there was something similar in 2018 games where I think they both ended up making it, but
I didn't just pull this scenario out of my ass. Like this has happened before pretty closely.
Oh man, I don't know. That's a interesting.
You're sitting up in bed at night just thinking of all of these scenarios.
And then what are the heartbreak things I can think about to just bring onto a podcast completely randomly?
You're a sick man.
I would cry again on a Scott Panchik final event at a competition. I already did that last year at the CrossFit Games.
That's one of the prop bets. That's one of the prop bets for this year for the games. How many times we can get Chase and Sean to cry on it?
Hey, if it's like, a binary, is Chase gonna cry or not gonna cry? Like you can always bet on cry. Like I am just a softy at heart.
Oh, well, it was like that dad moment too.
Yeah, that's the one that got me when they're like, and here's his daughter, and I'm like, oh,
right.
No. I'm like FaceTiming my kids in the middle of the broadcast. I love you guys so much.
Chase, was there anything else that kind of stood out on the leaderboard for let's talk about the worldwide leaderboard. Anything that stuck out to you?
I was trying to look through that. I mean, the Panchik thing, obviously, Scott was a big one. The Chandler Smith 24 hours in one.
Mm-hmm.
Looking down,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Samuel Quant
Yes.
sitting in 15th.
15th.
What
Yeah.
was the big one, because the move from Comp Train, the season he had last year, like he just felt like he just kind of faded into nothing. He quanted himself, the quantum realm. Oh my gosh. In your face, Tommy Marquez. In your face.
Wow.
So I feel like after 2020, he's disappeared into the quantum realm. And now after he made this move, boom, 15th, worldwide 15th after quarterfinals.
Crazy.
Yeah. What about you,
Quantum
PC?
realm really just derail this entire podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Our brains are just like spinning right now.
we're starting all over. On the men's side, it's just like it looks like North America is obviously. It looks like North America is probably going to be one of the, the dominating region, area, continent, wherever you want to call it, with the exception of Guy. But there's some other people out there. Obviously, Ricky and Roman. Those are.
Yeah.
Those
God,
are.
I hope they make the CrossFit Games this year.
Yeah. Speaking of which, you had the chance to talk to Ricky. You had the breaking news. You're the guys that broke it. You're the infamous guy that got to talk to Ricky.
Got the story.
Exactly. And to see him, were you a bit surprised that he was on top of the leaderboard for Oceania? Is that how you say it?
I would, yeah, Oceania. I thought he would do. I mean, he's a top 3, top 5, I think, lock.
Yep.
Top 3, I think, is going to be very, very tough in Oceania, especially if you're on the women's side. You basically get one spot to the CrossFit Games. On the men, I think it's much more volatile, and it could come down to what the programming is at the semifinals. That really does shake out who your top 3 is. But after seeing Ricky on top of this, it gives me a lot more confidence that Ricky can be one of those top 3. Jump on the women's side to your question, Emma Lawson in 9th. Worldwide 9th place. After all this, are you going to go indie or are you going to go teen one more year? I feel like this is all settled and done now. Like, here comes the next teen. Like, how spoiled are we getting with these teenage women athletes? And even you go down to 19th, you have a 16-year-old Olivia Kirkstetter sitting in 19th worldwide. I think the teenage girls across the board may be one of the stories that, we talk about, but I feel like still deserves much more attention to what's happening over there.
100%. I keep on saying 100% because you just bring up so many great points, Chase.
Let me talk first for once. Patrick, you get the next one. I'm sorry.
I mean, you look at that.
We'll start with you on the next topic.
You look at that women's leaderboard, and it's just not the teenagers, but it's the development of that teen division. Because you have Gabby, who's an alumni of that teen division. Obviously Mal is. Alexis Raptis, and that's 3 of the top 5. And and then you see the evolution of someone like Emma, Olivia at 19. It's crazy. It just blows my mind. Especially Olivia. She's 16, but she literally just turned 16.
Yeah.
December,
Oh my God. In December, she turned 16?
Exactly. So she's been driving a car since December.
She finally got to drive to the gym this year.
Exactly. Yep. Unsupervised, drove to the gym for Christmas. There we go. But that's crazy. I mean,
wow.
And I think she has a decision. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that, Chase?
Oh man, that's a hard sell. Honestly, you want to look at, I think, athletes to really talk to for Olivia, who she should be talking to right now is Haley Adams.
Yeah. I agree.
Because it took Haley a couple years to make that jump. She was a teen phenom. She had her moment in the sun there. And then it took her a year or two to break through that ceiling. I mean, Haley's only 21. She's 21. And so I think, if I were, Hepner or Olivia, I was like, sit down with Haley and really talk out, those decisions. Maybe it's better for Olivia's competition career to spend another year or two in the teen division, fine tune your craft. Because sometimes I think what happens with younger athletes, and I can't speak for female athletes, but I have seen this discussed among female athletes. And actually, Haley talked about this yesterday, is the comparison downfall where you start, I would hate for Olivia, who's on this upward trajectory, to walk into a semifinal, get maybe shocked a little bit of her ability there, and then that almost set her back a couple steps, where, maybe one more year or 2 more years in the teen division to just, build up your fitness. You're 16, for crying out loud. Like, you haven't even matured
Long
yet.
career. Yeah.
All right. Like, and so maybe a year or two there to just really build that up, so that when she does take that step, and we're talking a year or two, you're going to be taking a step into the semifinals in 2 years, and you're 17, 18 years old.
Wow.
The only thing I worry about for the young athletes is to take that leap, maybe it not pan out like they were told it was going to, or what they thought it was going to. And that's a tough reality check for a teenager. That's a tough reality check for anybody, let alone a teenager. So that would be my only hesitation for Olivia.
Yeah, it's interesting because she doesn't have that much live high-level competition experience. So the argument could be made, well, she can get that at semifinals. And that's what I hate about this new rule. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of torn back and forth this new rule. Like, Olivia, like last year, like athletes like Olivia Sulik, Emma Carey. Olivia Sulik is one that I wanted to kind of point out, because she wanted to test herself at a semifinal, and she knew she was going teen, but she finished like 18th at the MAC, and went to the games, and she finished second to Emma Lawson in a teen division. But she got that opportunity to see where she kind of stood. Emma Lawson kind of did that this year with Dubai. She went to Dubai, finished top, I think 9th, and now she's been crushing an open in here. So her mind's pretty much made up. But Olivia hasn't had that opportunity where she can kind of measure herself in live competition, and the only opportunities that she can get to make that decision would either be decide to go to semis or not. But I agree with you in terms of, I would give it another year to develop, figure out, why not win that 16 to 17-year-old teen title, add that to the Hall of Fame, resume. She'd only be one of a handful of teen athletes to do that. And then see what happens after that. Then do what Emma's doing. I mean, I think, like you said, talk to someone like Haley Adams, and then talk to someone like Emma Lawson, who's been there and recently, and get her opinion. Now, however, the money.
Well,
if she does make it to the game, she's guaranteed at least $2,500. She makes it to the games as a team, she's not making anything.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So, but I mean,
you think of a long-term gain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a tough question to answer.
Yeah, and it's something. She was on Savon's podcast last night, and it seemed like she was kind of torn on it too. And obviously, she's going to sit down with Jacob and her team, and they're going to make a decision on that. Hopefully sooner than. I mean, it has to be sooner. I mean, she is going to do the team quarterfinal, and see what happens from that. But I mean, is there any doubt what she's going to do in that team quarterfinal?
Right.
Yeah, I will say Trista Smith. She's a 16-year-old, trains out of Fort Vancouver. She actually, I believe she's in a top. I know she's in a top 100 in the U.S. So she's up for a semifinal spot. But that's another team that kind of went under the radar right there. Another 16-year-old.
Okay, so now that we've looked at the leaderboard on like who is qualifying, some of the top athletes, any athletes who we were surprised not to see in the top to go on to a semifinal.
Check this right now.
I can go.
PC, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you go, sir.
Okay.
You go chase research.
Yeah, currently in a spot out of the qualifying spot. I do see that changing is Sam Briggs. 66 in Europe right now, and obviously they only take the top 60. I do see her getting a backfill spot, but that means 6 other athletes have to commit to something else. Unlike the U.S., where you have this you know, large group of teen athletes that are probably going to make a decision to go teen. You don't have that in Europe. So her only hope is basically athletes who are going to go team. And the one that kind of sticks out to me in Europe is Lena Richter, who I think finished 10th in Europe. She's obviously going to go team with an M with Oslo. So that opens up another spot. So she needs to hope for 5 other spots to open up. So that way she can get that backfill spot. But it's her last year. So, she announced this is her last year. She's retiring this year. And obviously, I mean, she's got to get there first, but not to see her there. But even if she makes it to the semifinals, there's no,
right.
They're only taking 10, so, that's the name that kind of sticks out to me. And I'd hate to see her not at the games.
Yeah, that was one I was looking at yesterday. The only issue there is that we're trying to see if scores reshuffling, but she's so far out point wise from that 60th place position that, Patrick, you're right. It's going to have to be people that are either going team or for some reason not signing up. And 6 spots is not out of the realm of possibility, like you said. And there's still, like I said, the leaderboard's not totally set. I would hate for this to be the end of the line for Briggs, but I think if she were to get into a semifinal, that may be. Of course, I said that, and then she goes to Dubai and just makes me look like a complete fool. In December.
Don't do it again,
I left her. Well, maybe this is okay. Sam, I'm doing you a favor.
Don't eat your words.
If you go to a semifinal, you're not going to make the CrossFit Games, which means you are going to make the CrossFit Games because I'm saying you're not going to be going to the CrossFit Games. So make sure LaFranco clips this clip appropriately and not just the very first part of that sentence. But I left her for dead at Rogue. I was like, you need to move on to the Legends competition and just walk off into the sunset. And she goes into Dubai and just freaking kicks ass yet again. Turns the clock back 10 years.
Yeah.
So who knows? If she gets in, honestly, if she gets into a semifinal, I could not tell you what the outcome is going to be. I can tell you what I hope it's going to be.
But I hope to see her at the games. Again, that's another scary thing because she's eligible for the age group quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
So, if she does that,
do you think she'd rather go to an age group games or semifinals Indy?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, either way, she's going to be at the games, whether competing or not. She's going to be there.
Yeah.
She's going to be there doing something. She's probably going to run a triathlon while something's going on or whatever, or, just going to do a marathon row while people are, I mean, but yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, she's made that decision before, but that was when they had options. She doesn't have the options this year. So who knows? She loves competition. So, that's a hard one. That's a very hard one.
I'm curious your take on that. I mean, you've expressed it is, but I'm on the other side of I like this. I like not giving athletes an option just because it puts a bit more stress and uncertainty on the year. I don't like having your foot out of 3 different doors. Just from an athlete perspective, I was like, listen, call your shot and shoot your shot.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's like, well, I didn't make this, but I can do this. Well, that didn't work out, so I can do this. Like, I don't like a fallback plan.
Yeah.
And that's just a personal opinion. I'm not going to say one way or the other, but I like this rule of pick one and go for it. No more safety nets. Like this is. But that's
so if
that's
you were
my
a
personal
coach
take.
to a high level athlete, you would want them to bet on themselves instead of having options.
Absolutely. And because I think once you open up a back door, you're not 100% focused on what you wanted to begin with. Right. And that might just be coach speak, but I feel like there's a reality of that situation. And maybe that's the one thing that she needs.
Yeah. I think the best example of that was Emma Carey last year. She's like, I'm going to concentrate. She didn't do the age group online qualifier. She just it's all or nothing. And she concentrated on that and it worked out for her, obviously.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I agree with you. I think the reason why I'm kind of pulled is because I'm used to seeing, I want to see Sam Briggs at the game. I want to see some of these legends at the games. I want to, because I'm I enjoy watching the Masters competition, I enjoy doing it. I love going out there. I can't wait to start seeing these other, these greats back on the floor. I mean, we're starting to see that with like James Hobart, Adrian Conway, they're going back out there competing. I mean, I'd love to see that, but yeah, I didn't really think about it that long that way. And I guess,
What about Becca Voigt?
yeah,
The heck?
yeah. I want to say I'm surprised. I mean, I'd like to say I wasn't surprised, but I am surprised. We haven't really heard much from her.
I mean, worldwide, she's 190.
Mhm.
Worldwide. North America, what was she? 100th.
Yeah.
So she's qualified for a semifinal. At 41, she's older than Sam Briggs, and she's qualified for a semifinal in North America.
Yep. See, last year she was in that position where she did compete at the MAC,
right? Yeah.
Competed in Masters, so she's got to make that decision this year.
Man, it must suck to be so good at so many different things.
Yeah. Right.
These tough life choices these athletes have to make.
We don't have any of these decisions to have to make.
My decision is like, can I get out of bed without my back hurting? Do I roll or do I sit up? Those are the tough decisions I have to make on a daily basis.
So Chase, did you name who you were surprised to see outside qualification?
No, for me it was the Sam Briggs one for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest name we have so far on the outside looking in, with a potential to break into that semifinal position. I think other names we've seen that are familiar are just so far outside that it's just, oh, they didn't make it. But no one with the pedigree I think that Sam has.
Yeah, there's another name out there is Annika Greer. I kind of want to really touch on that real quick.
Well, yes, that's
a very unfortunate thing.
Not performance based outside the top 120.
Exactly, and as Lauren pulled up, there's something missing there.
Yeah,
and we talked to her. We had her on live. Her and Alex Kazan on, and
so they put in their 4 scores.
Yeah, they both said they finished all the workouts by Saturday. I mean, you, like me, you know that Underdogs crew pretty well there in Vegas, and she told us that she'd already entered a score in there for that night, and right now it's not showing, and it's not looking good for her. And this was an athlete who prior to that was in the top 10, and I think at the end of the 4 workouts she was 15th, and she's been through so much the last 2 years, like missing her shot constantly. I mean, first as a teenager they canceled the teen division, and then last year just missing out on both Atlas games and the last chance qualifier. So it looks like I don't want to make any assumptions now, but it's it might look like she's missing her games again this year, and it's unfortunate because she's probably easily one of the top athletes that deserves to be at the games, but for whatever reason, whether it be a technical error or a user error, it's not looking so good for her.
I mean, you look at those place finishes: 5th in event 1, 9th in event 2, 172nd in event 3. But that's one of those.
Yeah.
But 38th in the lift, and so your average place finish across those 4 is 56. And if you just make that an average score, what it would be is she'd get 200 in total, 80 points. And if you're looking at overall in North America, I mean, that's good enough for 18th overall if she were to just average those all together. And it's tough because like she's still in a review process of whatever it is going on there, but it wasn't a performance-based miss.
Yeah.
And those are tough things to work around when it comes to that. So I'm curious to see what the issue is, what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all are, because if you saw her, obviously everyone kind of like Wodapalooza was basically her coming out party, and she performed, and she's one of those young athletes that can, not that we don't have enough young athletes in CrossFit to energize a sport, but she definitely brings a different energy than some other athletes do, and it's just unfortunate. Hopefully they figure it out, and if not, then then we'll just move on with that, I guess.
Yeah, to be determined. The official leaderboard isn't determined until Friday, but I'm curious, for some of these athletes that are close to the cut line, they don't know if they're qualifying yet, or maybe they're pretty sure that they just missed getting to a semifinal this year. What's next for them? What should they be doing now?
Well, I mean, probably don't change anything. maybe have one fun weekend, like be a normal person for maybe. I think the same thing as everybody should be doing, even if they did qualify, right? Blow off some steam, be a human being for about a week, and then just get back into the gym.
Mm.
Yeah, because they have 2 months essentially,
Right?
so that's plenty of time to deload and build back up, so that way you're peaking again for the semifinals. You know, and I think what Chase says is exactly. Do a Lauren, have some fun on have a little bit of fun on Sunday.
You notice I looked a little rough today. I had a
I
couple
didn't say
of
that at
adult
all.
beverages.
Have a little fun on Sunday. Have a little bit of sugar, some cheesecake. I don't know, whatever. Starburst, gummies, whatever you do.
Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's.
Okay, whatever. And and then it'll take a couple days. And I mean, I overheard Danielle Brandon said she was, she had a couple like sponsorship obligations she needs to do. As we know, a lot of these athletes, between the open and quarterfinals, they kind of shut down because they don't want any outside distractions. So this gives them that time to fulfill some of those sponsorship obligations, and catch up, on a lot of stuff they missed out during that whole training month, essentially month of training and competition. So like Chase said, just kind of be normal, kind of get back into that, and then ramp it back up. I mean, he knows better than I do. He's, Captain America.
No, that's new. Past tense.
Oh, whatever. You jump into a new age group next year, so
That's right.
Ooh.
That is a reason
What can we
why
expect to see from you?
Well, I mean,
some dope ass outfits at a live competition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shying away from, next year I advanced to the 40 to 44 division, so I turned 40 in November, and part of my self-preservation in quarterfinals of not doing it because I partially tore my calf in week 1 of the Open was I have a plan to try to qualify for the CrossFit Games next year. That's my big goal. Turning 40, that's kind of like my midlife crisis. I'm not going to go out and buy a Ferrari. I'm just going to go and try and qualify for the 2023 CrossFit Games. So yeah, that's the big goal for next year.
Look at that. Chase put Nick Uranker on notice.
365 days of next year's hockey tryouts.
No. But what about the athletes whose seasons are over? I mean, what do they do?
They go team, right? That's the
No.
It's the next best thing coming up.
Listen, I'm half tongue in cheek there, but like, listen, you shot your shot as an individual. Either you're old enough to be in the Masters division, which that's coming up in a week, 2 weeks, and then or the team side. And I think a lot of these teams are kind of at a wait and see moment to see what these individual athletes do. And if you're anywhere near the top 200 in your continental region, is like you are the most elite person in your affiliate, most likely, other than these training camp affiliates. So team is definitely something that I would like to see a lot of these athletes transition to, and hopefully other athletes have enough, or
other athletes
or they swallow their own pride and be like, yes, I realize I was the second person on, this person didn't make it, therefore they are better than me, therefore they make the team better. Like there's always that discussion to be had after semifinals.
Lots of fun.
Yeah. And the alternate title for a team that goes to the games, you don't want to be in that position.
Right.
Now, granted, you get that little sticker and star on your CrossFit Games profile, like, hey, I was at the games, but up for, because you went to the games as an alternate. But yeah, this is
that would be a fun topic one day, is what to do with the alternate team spot. I feel like there's a better option there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I feel like there's a.
I bet you and Bill better jump on that story before we do.
So I'm gonna.
The wheels are spinning.
Right now.
Okay, guys, this was a really fun show. We'll see you next time.
Get on immediely.
Exactly. I mean, you are kind of like the you've been making your trips around all these recap shows this last couple of days.
I can't
You're
not
the
talk about
extra person
CrossFit.
for every show. I love it.
The third wheel.
Yeah.
I'm the ultimate third wheel podcast guest.
Oh man.
Well, listen, my wife doesn't pay attention to CrossFit, nor does she like to talk about. So I got to talk about CrossFit with
Oh, yeah.
somebody. And since I can't do it at home, I have to pour it all out on these recap shows.
I'm just upset that you actually came on with the shirt on, because last time I saw you on Savons, you hopped in with no shirt off.
Well, next year when I'm primed, I might. I'll do
Yes.
yes. When I'm game fit ready,
Gotcha.
I might dabble in that again.
Oh,
Perfect. We can't wait for that.
They can wait.
Well, Chase, Patrick, thank you guys so much for sitting down to recap the unofficial leaderboards for quarterfinals. Now we have 2 more quarterfinals. We have teams, and then we have age group. So a couple of things we're getting ready to do, and then semifinals. It's going to be fun.
Can't wait.